Okay, so it's been a while since we last recorded a podcast, and a lot of things have happened since then. But just to backtrack, where our last podcast ended off, we were at Lake Edgar in Tasmania, in the Southwest National Park. So we have actually spent in total 12 weeks touring around Tasmania. So in this episode, we're going to try and fill in the final section of the Tasmanian trip. So from Lake Edgar, which we've already mentioned in the previous podcast, so if you want to learn about that one, jump back an episode. From here, you have to actually double back on your drive. So there were some things that we'd seen along the way and we'd earmarked as places that we wanted to stop at. We'd been given recommendations, as you do, from other travellers about worthwhile places to stop. So we didn't get very far out of Lake Edgar on our first day pulling out of there.
Fancy us not getting very far on a day of travelling. That always seems to happen. We went with one plan, and as usually, and it always happens, you know, I decided I had to climb up this thing called the Needles, and that was a great little climb. So if you're going out that way past Medina or into that sort of area, it's not a simple one. It's a bit steep. It was a bit of fun. It took me I don't know, an hour and a half. It's basically straight up, and there's some wonderful views up there. So we did that. We also did another thing called, what was that, the little teeny weeny walks. We did two little teeny weeny walks.
Is that the creepy crawly
walk and something like that.
But
they
can
were
I
all
just
great
mention,
fun.
one of the reasons that we wanted to climb that Needles, and if you've been there, you'll know this, and if you're about to go there, prepare yourselves. The views here of these amazing, steep, rugged, Scottish-looking, craggy cliffs is really spectacular, and the hikes there are really, that are posted, are too hard. They're so long, and like, we're really into our hiking, but we just weren't set up for multi-day hikes, and they're really long and they're just hard to do casually. But this Needles thing looked like we could just pull over by the side of the road, scramble up the hills about 1 kilometre up to the top. So we thought, yay, let's do that. And the view from the top is really fun. If you're really into your photography, stand at the top there and look down. You get this beautiful winding road, and there was groups of motorcyclists fanging along, so snaking along on this narrow road through the beautiful craggy views was great. So on a good day, it's just a good spot to enjoy the scenery before you head out of that area, and that's about the last of the views there.
Yeah, that's about the last of things to do in that kind of, what would you call that area, central inland? I don't know what they actually call that area.
Plateau, I don't know. Yeah. So for us, we had also gone past Medina. Now, anyone that's into mountain biking will probably already know that Medina has earned its place on the map of Tasmania because it has a quite world-renowned mountain biking downhill bike park.
Yep.
And our bad luck is that it was a competition weekend, so it was really crowded, but we still really wanted to go. Unfortunately, we just missed the season, so it's not, at that time it was no longer the summer, so it wasn't open every day, and it was only open Friday to Monday.
Yep.
And we came through like on the Sunday or something or other. So I went in and I was overwhelmed, to be honest. There was a smorgasbord, as if you're at a ski lift area, working out what costs what, and I couldn't get out of there other than spending $70 to get a lift pass. And we weren't really sure that it was a sort of mountain biking that we wanted to do. I think we got a bit spoilt at Derby, which is all rainforest and everything. Medina is pretty hardcore. Everyone was in their fancy helmets, downhill helmets. And I was just going, I'm going to die. I've had enough falls.
It looked like it was going to hurt if we went to Medina.
Well, we're too old, maybe. And we're still on our pedal-powered bikes, not e-bikes. And I don't know. We were getting to this point with the biking that there was a few other spots that we thought we'd do, Railton and Sheffield. So
we did mark some others.
Yeah, we spent a really good time having a look at it and just drove on.
And just out of after we left Medina, we end up at Mount Field National Park.
Yeah, now Mount Field National Park is really popular, and it was a place that we'd been recommended by others that said, oh my God, it's the best waterfalls we've ever been to, highly recommend. We got there, it was so busy. This is not a peaceful national park.
It was a Sunday.
Yeah,
Was it a long weekend as well?
Oh, it's probably school holidays.
Every
and all
weekend in Tasmania seems to be a long weekend.
At the end of summer it is, yeah. Look, we managed to be able to whiz around and do all the waterfalls on the circuit hike, just using the visitor day car park. and we got through that quite quickly.
The
We're a
caravan
little bit
park was
deflated.
chock-a-block,
Yeah, the caravan park was full. If it wasn't, we probably would have stayed. We were getting a bit tired. We'd had a big
camping
day.
area, probably not a caravan park. Is it?
Yeah, I think it's
camping
run by caretakers, whatever. The hiking, the trails, lovely rainforest and all, but no different to anywhere else we'd already been. We've seen a lot of beautiful waterfalls and rainforests.
It was very well formed and had disabled facilities and disabled access, which is obviously something important if you need that kind of stuff. So it was very tourist friendly.
Yeah, it was more mainstream, and given that most people weren't in hiking shoes, they were wearing white sneakers and white jumpers and their best clothes, and they were able to stay on a formed path, and there were some steps and all of that. That wasn't challenging at all for anyone that's done the sort of hikes that we've been doing, but certainly it's a more user-friendly way to get into the rainforest for those that are less inclined to do some of the type of hikes that we've mentioned before on our channel that we do. So we chose not to stay. Again, we moved on, and we had a number of campsites as potentials, and a bit of a route mapped out because we needed to start heading north and then eventually a little bit inland further to eventually get to Cradle Valley, which we decided was going to be the end point of our trip, and we'd make a final dash to get onto the ferry at the end. So basically from there to Cradle Valley we had another couple of weeks, and we were just sort of following our nose and stopping at what we wanted to stop at. Couple of highlights: we loved a free camp Bethune
Park
on
camp
the
area.
River Derwent. We found a lot of berries that you could free pick by the side of the road, the good old Tasmanian produce that you can pick a blackberry over the fence, gorge yourself on fresh food. Did a bit of that. Wineries up in that area are fabulous. In fact, we found a distillery and that had David's name all over it. And although it was 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the morning.
10 o'clock in the morning and you lob past and the sign said open. So what better opportunity to go and drink gin and whiskey than 10 o'clock in the morning on a Monday? It was the place we're talking about is Loreni Estate. Fantastic. The owner there, the guy, he was running the place and he was the owner. He was very accommodating. He opened up the whole distillery and he showed us around all the barrelling areas and the kegs, and he went through the whole process. And being a gin distiller myself, I'd make gin at home. He gave me I'd always wanted to do whiskies, and he gave me the whole process and he showed me all the machinery they use and how it all works, and it was really fantastic. And they had, I don't know, 5 or 6 whiskies and 5 or 6 gins, and we tried them all at 10 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock in the morning.
I didn't think I could manage it, but once we started it was easy enough.
Except it wasn't so much easier leaving and driving away. But
we got the personalised service because we were his first customers, but literally we would have had a personalised tour that went at least an hour.
Oh, it was an hour and a half, I think, before we
But we did spend a fair bit of money.
Yeah, we spent a fortune. We bought some whiskey, we bought some gin. As one of the things about touring around and buying, going to wineries and distilleries and your wine collection and all that sort of stuff, I always keep saying to everybody, you know, I don't just go to the shop to buy wine. I go to a winery to hear a story, and it's the story that sells the product. And you know, for me, going into a winery and going into this Loreni Estate and speaking to the owner there and having this great tour and a completely ad hoc thing that all came about, it was really easy to spend $500 or $600 with him because it was just such a good time. It was good value, and I've still got the whiskey. I've got to actually open that one. I haven't cracked the head on that one yet, but I think we drank all the gins before we left Tasmania. That was about 3 bottles. But anyway, we digress.
Gordon, you're making us sound like we drink too
much. Well, we're Alcos, yeah, sounds like it. But basically, after Loreni, we went to the first town we'd been to, because we were running out of groceries and things as well, was Ouse. O-U-S-E is the name of the town.
Oh, well, it's very exciting. They had a sign that called my name, I-G-A.
I-G-A.
Come in, Michelle. Yeah. I know that sounds really boring, but we really were having such an unplanned trip that we never knew how long we were going to stay somewhere and how many supplies would last. And we prefer to eat fresh fruit and vegetables predominantly, and there's only so long that can last. So, you know, we were getting to the bottom of the fridge, and of course we've got tin food and I can make bread and all of that, but that's the emergency stuff.
Yeah.
So really, going to the IGA is just to sort of top up on the niceties.
Yeah.
And we got a gas bottle refill there. That was exciting too, because
we needed some fuel, and there was all sorts of things we were able to do there. And it had been probably weeks since we'd actually found an IGA. So, you know, even because we'd been out at the
Pedder.
the Lake Pedder and stuff, you know, we'd been there for quite a number of days. There was no shops out there, and you know, we'd been down south before that. There wasn't many shops down there either, so we basically cut this path of trying to cut across, you know, from the bottom corner to Cradle Valley in a sort of a straight line, and we were basically taking every off-road road and everything that we could do to sort of do that at a diagonal.
And we had a few misadventures. Nothing.
Oh, a few roads that you get up to, you drive a couple of Ks and then you get a no-through road or a fence or something. So,
but it's worth exploring, and that's all the fun of it, and that's what we do.
And
yeah,
it's all
we had
part
the
of the mapping
trailer on,
updates.
and
they're all part of the map
Yep,
updates.
yep.
So it's important for us, you know, we see a road and we'll have a go and we'll get halfway along and there might be a fence that says this is permanently closed or closed. Well, all of a sudden we have a mapping update, and so that's part of our job, and that's what we do it for.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go.
So
following
you
your
don't have
nose
to have
wrong
misadventures
place.
in trying to drag a heavy trailer up this monstrous hill. Oh,
Yeah.
that was hard. That
Now
one.
I'm not sure if what is it called?
Wandamatta?
Wanda
Is that what it's
Manor.
called? Wandamatta?
The power station. I'm not sure if it was a hot tip we'd been given or we saw it on our
I
map,
think we just lobbed at it.
but we just turned up.
Wandamana.
Wanda okay.
Yeah.
And it's just at the bottom of the Great Lakes, really. And that you need to allocate a couple of hours for. If you're one of these people that is
If you're
passionate about old
A
engineering
mechanic
and
junkie
mechanics,
and engineering and all that kind of stuff, if you get off on all that sort of thing,
you'll love
it was fantastic. You know, it was basically a fully functioning 9 turbine power station up until not so long ago, and you know, so they've made it a full museum now. So they've got all the original turbine generators and all the bits and pieces are all still in there, and what they've done is they've like cut open all the chassis of things so you can actually look inside how all these things work. We had a good time. All free. There was no charge.
Yeah, I was just about. I'm looking at the places information.
It was a free.
Open daily, free for self-guided tours.
Yep.
Now, having said that it's self-guided, you usually do get an introduction by the caretaker there, the on-site guy, who will give you a bit of a summary of the
Yeah.
history, which you can sense the passion. So it's run by volunteers. It's an amazing building, so it is quite a nice spot, and they do have picnic grounds outside and a coffee van and things like that.
If you're in the area, and that's well worth doing. There are close camps, the camps that we actually made for ourselves that night, which is just how this whole power station worked. Was it comes from the Great Lakes, they pipe some water to another small lagoon, which was called Penstock Lagoon, and Penstocks, if you know about this power generation technology, penstocks are the tubes that run down the sides of the mountain where the water is coming down under pressure into the turbines at the bottom. And so this penstock lagoon is just up the hill from the power station, funnily enough.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic.
Yeah, there's
a wealth
about
of campsites. There's
about 5 free designated campsites. Some have toilets, pit toilets, but they're very clean and all new and
all
open
fire,
all
you
of
can
that.
fire there.
But
you
the
can do
lagoon
all the stuff
itself
there.
is well used by locals.
It's a fly fishing.
Fly fishing. And they're out there in their waders, but you can have a boat there. We've got stand-up paddle boards. We found it a little bit tricky from the camp that we chose to stay at to get to the water's edge. It was a bit marshy and a bit boggy.
Yeah.
So we just sat back and enjoyed the view. Black swans everywhere. We had more wallabies coming up to the campfire, do you remember?
Yeah.
We had service. The only reason we had service was Starlink.
Starlink, of course.
Okay,
Starlink.
I remember the phone call.
You've got to remember we have Starlink, we have service wherever we go.
Okay, so there's no service.
There was no service, I don't think there was service. Oh no, we have 3G on our POI symbols for that place, so maybe there was service.
Well, 3G must have been a
3G,
bit patchy.
4G, you know, we've got the symbol on our campsite, so it must have had some level
So
of
this
service.
area is just south of Miena, the Great Lakes, and then driving up through Miena, we're getting into the Central Highlands, and for us, we are on a mission to check out another hot tip we've been given. Apparently the Liffey Falls is a fabulous waterfall, so we thought we'd go and look at that. On the way in, the most significant natural landform is this rocky bluff called Projection Bluff. It looked magnificent. There is a hike to it, but the weather started to turn for us, and so we ended up in a weather pattern for the next week and a half where our plans for all the hiking in this incredible area of the Central Highlands, where it was a hiker's paradise. We had a few complications because some of these hikes would have been a little bit dangerous in the wet and the sleet, and it was starting to get cold. We did go to Liffey Falls just before the rain started, and we could have walked on a perfect day, but waterfall and coming rain, we thought, well, why don't we wait for the rain to make perfect waterfalls? And that was a good decision. So we walked after a massive downpour.
Well, we did, the day that it was raining, we did a road tour. So we did a bit of a drive around and had a bit of a look around. Did we get as far as Mole Creek and stuff that day? I don't think we did. We did basically a few loops around some of the roads in there.
We went to Deloraine and
yeah.
So from this part of Tasmania, everything's fairly accessible, and you're getting into the central north area. Deloraine is a major shopping point. Yep. And for us, again, we still hadn't got enough supplies, so we needed to head into Deloraine to spend more time waiting out the weather. So we ended up in Deloraine, I think, in the next stage of our final stage of our Tasmanian trip. I think we went 4 times.
Or something like that.
Yeah. Anyway, it had a big Woolies, and we needed to get prescriptions filled, and you can do all of that. And there's quirky cafes. It's actually a lot bigger and more
Deloraine
funky
was
than
quite a nice little town.
It had an organic.
Oh, it actually had a Woolworths. We actually had a shop there. Yeah,
we went there a couple of times.
That was a shop. That's why we went there 4 times. It had a shop.
Yeah, Liffey Falls.
Liffey Falls, fantastic.
Okay,
wow.
There's two places that you can access the hike. You either drive up the hill and park in the day use car park, and then you're walking downhill and quite a short walk to get to the main section of the falls.
Yep.
Or you drive down to the bottom of the falls and a much longer walk to come up, but a beautiful
Well, that's where the campsite is actually down at the bottom. It's not actually near the top there. So the campsite is down the river a bit. I think it was 3 Ks. Was it a 2 or 3 K walk along there? I've got the file here.
Okay.
We did 10 Ks of hiking that day, so it must have been a reasonable walk. I'm just looking at. We did 10.4 Ks, but we did a fair bit because not only did we walk up the track to the falls, we went to all of the lookouts. We then went to the car park. We went to the other end of it and walked around where there's a big tree and some toilets and other stuff. That's at the actual car parking at Upper Liffey Falls, or the Liffey Falls main entranceway. But that whole hike and the whole place, it was really wonderful. We'd come in just after the rain, and the water was pumping and the waterfalls were flowing, and it was a very spectacular place. We stayed there 3 nights or something, I think, in the end, by the time that was all said and done.
But you got stung by a wasp or a hornet or
I got stung by a wasp.
Oh my God.
Now, to put a picture in your mind, you walk around with shorts on, right? You walk around with shorts on. So I was just walking around, and when we arrived, there was obviously something on the ground, or something had happened. There was thousands of these bee-type wasps, and I think they were a wasp.
We picked this great campsite, but I said to Dave, oh no, there's bees on the ground or whatever it is. I go, I don't think this is where we want to camp. And you discounted it, saying, no, it'll be fine, they'll go away.
I shouldn't have discounted it.
He got stung up the thigh.
I was getting something out of the car. And one of those little buggers flew up the gap in my shorts, up my leg, up my pants. And I didn't realise it was there, and then I've just bent my legs, which has obviously squished my pants against my leg, and the little guy decided that was enough to throw in the sting. Oh, that was brutal. That took about 4 days for that one to. That was a beauty. It hurt. It hurt like a bee. I thought it was a bee for a while, and then it just didn't go away for a long time.
So they didn't go until the rain showers had gone through, until the weather had completely changed. So it was quite humid when we'd got there originally, and there are a lot of camps. It's quite popular, and most people just come 1 night, 2 nights. This is the Lower Liffey Falls Camping Reserve.
So if you're in Tasmania and you see these little waspy bees and stuff, I strongly urge you to try not to get stung.
Yeah. Look, the main thing to make people aware of, if you are going to that place and you're towing a caravan, even our camper trailer, the winding road in, the most direct road down from Deloraine down to there, past the junction, it's pretty sketchy.
Yeah.
So we decided we'd check out the tourist drive, and it's all flat. So the long way round from Deloraine via Liffey, and if you do that, you'll go past Ura, which is where Bob Brown, the former senator for the Greens Party, he has set up. So it's now set up with a.
Well, it's where he used to live, and it's now set up as a museum. I think
It's got the lovely
his
hut.
home, and now it's his museum.
Yep.
And now it's a museum. And so that's a great place. And yeah, that little sneaky drive around. It's on. Is that on Bogan Road? I think I've got on the map here. I think it was something like that. So you come in on a slightly different road, and it's much flatter, and it was a lot easier. So you wouldn't really take a big van to this place. It's still fairly steep and that, but you a lot easier to get in past Ura.
Yeah. So it's Bush Heritage Australia.
Yeah.
And they manage it, and we happened to be there when the caretaker was just walking around, and we had a wonderful chat with him. If we'd realised it was there, I was thrilled because I'd seen the movie that had come out only end of last year with Bob Brown, the Tasmanian one that features the little cottage there. So if you'd seen that movie as well, I think it's called Giants. I think it's called
Something
Giants.
like that.
Yeah.
The road is Golf Road.
Yeah, it's a good
Road,
spot to
Golf
go
Road.
and allocate a little bit of time to go and have a look, because you've got to go on a bit of a hike and have a look around.
Yeah.
So we had a bit of a hiccup when we left there. It wasn't long past there, and we got a phone call from one of our kids saying that he had just written off his brother's car. So our two sons have been living in our house while we've been away on this trip. They've had the responsibility of keeping the fort. And this was not the phone call that you want to have, because of course I thought he was injured. The first thing that came out of his mouth, he was in the car, he just had the accident. And look, long story short, I'm not going to bore you with the details, but it really has changed our trip, and I wanted to go home. And so we're sitting by the side of the road, I'm crying. David's going, what do I do? Unhappy passenger here, and we had unfinished business with Tasmania because we still hadn't got to Cradle Valley.
Yeah.
And we hadn't been there. 20 years ago we tried to get to Cradle Valley, so we're really torn. But he found me a spot on a plane, and he could get us on the ferry in 2 days' time and the whole lot. It was fairly critical. We wanted to, obviously support our kids and figure it out. But after the emotions died down and the shock had passed, we
worked out the
think
logistics
sense.
and the requirements,
Yeah.
and it wasn't as critical as we I mean, it is critical. It was critical. It is critical. It has been critical. It still is kind of critical.
Yeah.
But it wasn't something that we were going to be able to fix in 5 minutes. So we decided to put that one on the side burner
calm
and
and
continue.
carry on. Yes.
So after Liffey and that kind of area and dropping into Deloraine and having a look around there, we basically housed ourselves at Mole Creek Karst National Park.
Yeah, so Mole Creek is very easily accessible from Deloraine, and we got to this spot on a hot tip from a friend, and it's a spot where there's honeycomb caves.
Yeah, so you can go sort of free caving on your own in there. They were quite. It was a good bit of fun. It wasn't super spectacular or anything wonderful, but lots of caves goes for a long way.
If you've got your headlamp,
you've got to take headlamps, and you can
crawl
go in quite a long
around
way. Some people say they've gone in for kilometres, but I wasn't that keen. I didn't need to get down on my hands and knees and go crawling through a little teeny weeny crack in a cave to go into another hole, to go into another hole.
But just past the cave entrance, which has the information signboard and all, there's this wonderful grassy area with these magnificent views to the mountains, and it's a free camp.
Yeah, free camp.
And we went,
wow.
It's
actually a national park camp, but it was free.
Yeah, okay, that's true. It is in the national park
camp.
and it is free. And what's the limit?
I don't remember.
Well,
I don't remember seeing a sign there about the limit, about how long the campsite limit is. You probably have it in the description, but it doesn't say.
Okay, but I want to tell you a little story about when we get there. So we get there and it's middle of the day. Beautiful time of day, beautiful weather and everything. And we set up, and it took us a little while because it's not the flattest, and fussing around we were. And we didn't want to, there was not many other people there, so we didn't want to block it off because it's beautiful grass. So we tried to allocate a spot that worked for us that would work for others. And we knew we were going to use it as a bit of a base camp. And anyway, we go off for a hike thinking we've set it up perfect. We come back and we've been parked in. There is, and not have we just been parked in by this caravaner, they have strung up their washing all the way around,
Yeah.
encroaching into our camp view of the beautiful landscape.
A 180 degree
All
clothesline
their
that
dirty
must have gone
washing,
about 25 metres,
all their
30 metres
underwear
long,
and their
right
jeans and
past
their
everybody.
sheets and all of that. And they were travelling in convoy. The other caravaner had set up in the appropriate spot that, to anyone that's got common sense, that was the obvious spot to go. I just don't know why this guy set up where he did, because he actually had angled his car hooked to his caravan in such a way that we could not leave if we wanted to.
We couldn't hook up our car.
Hook up our
Not
camper
only
trailer.
could we not
He
hook
was
up
in
our car,
front of the drawbar.
Yeah, not only could we not hook up the car, it was basically like he was sitting in his chair in our storage box at the front of our camper, and every moment they moved, it was just,
We could just hear
they were
it
basically
and
right
see
on
it.
top of
They were
us.
talking. All right. So because we're not used to staying in caravan parks and we're in this open area, it just felt a little bit too close, and it was obvious there was a lot of space around us. So you've got to remember, we just had this shocking emotional phone call, and our emotions were a little bit
Where are you
frayed.
going with this?
Well, you then had an angry argument with the guy with his
I
caravan.
let him know I didn't appreciate his laundry or the
And one of us
proximity
was
to
going
his
to
campsite.
go. It was not going to stay. So it was either we were going to go or he was going to go. And thankfully they packed up and they left. So we probably have a bad reputation if he told his friends. Sorry about that, but it was just not a friendly way.
There was plenty of things going on for us, which is beside the point. But there's a thing called common courtesy and decency, and if you're going to push the line, when I broached it with him, he jumped down my throat. So it was obvious.
He was very defensive.
He knew he was encroaching, but he thought, oh yeah, it would be perfect, but it wasn't so. Anyway, past that, we spent 4 days there or something, and we toured basically the whole area. We did Deloraine again.
Yep.
We did we did a few days trip to Mole Creek,
we
the
also
actual
did the
little
big
town
trip.
location of Mole Creek. We also did, we had a look at Wild Mersey for some mountain biking, which we thought we were going to do after we'd finished Cradle Mountain. And we did, a big trip. The second last morning or one morning we woke up and we went I knew I had a battery problem. There was a slight problem with the car. The car batteries, I'd had one of the terminals, the car's got two starter batteries, and one of the terminals on one of the batteries had gone all coppery, like it was actually like copper sulfate, had built up on the whole connectors. The whole connector was green and like loaded with crystals all over it. And I was going, oh, what's happened here? And obviously what I found was that the battery terminal, where the battery terminal goes into the battery, it actually cracked a little bit around the edge, so that the acid and the fluids inside the battery was leaking out, going up the terminal onto the contacts and corroding all the copper and stuff. And I'd known that for a few days, so I knew the batteries were was going to get a bit suspicious. But we went out to go for a day tour, and we went out to go on this day tour because I knew I needed to do the batteries, but we go to start the car and it goes, and it just didn't do anything. So we were going to change the batteries. That wasn't the problem. It's just that we had to jump start our car, and we used our little iTech World 3 JS80 or whatever it is, and it's actually able to start this car. We now have learnt when it needs to, which is perfect. I bought it for that, and it did its job well. So that was a good thing to learn. Obviously, we've got lots of batteries, and we can have a bit of a discussion about the battery management and all that sort of stuff. But the two start batteries, when one goes, the other one will go. They're connected in parallel, and that's just battery technology. If you lose one, you lose them both. So they both had to go. So a trip to Burnie. No, we were going to go to Burnie, but it was too far. Oh, yeah, we went on a bit of a
So David had
road
told
tour.
me we need to go for a long drive to charge up the batteries.
Yeah,
okay.
that was the plan. Actually, it was a long drive.
It was a long drive to charge the batteries, and you wanted to go to a Bunnings. So I looked on Google, and I found there was a Bunnings at Devonport and there was a Bunnings at Burnie. And there's no need to go to Devonport. We've been there, and we've got to go back there at the end. So, okay, we haven't been to Burnie this trip. So I plotted him out a 260 kilometre round trip for the day to charge the batteries. And halfway through that trip, we'd be at the Bunnings. And on the way, we thought we'd do our usual work, which is updating places and verifying what exists. We did so many of these that we got so exhausted and so tired, and it was nearly 4 o'clock when the shop was going to shut that we made a change.
It was actually super cheap because we had to go and buy the batteries.
Oh, super cheap, was it? I'm
super
sorry,
cheap
not
to
Bunnings.
buy the batteries.
Yes, super
but
cheap.
you know, yeah, we did this trip and we're trying to get out there, and we started working again, and then blom, 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 and we've gone, oh, let's go left instead of right. Oh, look down here, there's a great thing. Oh, look over there, there's something awesome. Oh, we must see the campsite on the other side of that. That was like a 70k drive.
Oh, yeah.
So all of a sudden, I'm looking at my watch and going, gee, love, it's 3 o'clock or something, and we've still got to get. Not only have we got to get to Supercheap, or a car shop, we've got to get there. We've got to be able to buy the batteries. We've got to install it. We've got to do all this freaking around. And I looked at the website and it said that the one at Burnie was going to shut at 4:30, and the one in Devonport was going to be 5 or 6 or something. So we decided to quickly change our plans.
We changed our plan and got to Devonport.
And we got there at about 4:20 or something, and bought the batteries and got it all sorted.
So we're in the car park there, and it's one of these mega super centres that has everything. It had Anaconda. Do you want new shoes?
It had BCF, Anaconda, it had
everything.
Super Cheap, it had car yards, it had all sorts of shops. Things that some shops we've never even seen before. Brands and things like that.
So you actually replaced the batteries, the two cranking batteries under the bonnet of the 200 series Land Cruiser that we have, out of a trolley. In the car park.
In the car park.
And I'm in the car park, and I'm probably looking filthy dirty, hiking boots and grubby, and I'm making lunch out of the back of the car, making a wrap and spreading the avocado and putting the lettuce on. Everyone who lives in Devonport, you know, everyday shoppers, they're looking at us a bit weird. What are you doing? We looked a bit desperate. Anyway, we did what we had to do, solve the problem, and then we hightailed it all the way back to our camp down the highway. From Devonport.
Back to Mole Creek.
Back through Mole
Creek.
Yeah. So we were
exhausted.
That
day. Yeah, we were pretty exhausted that day. That ended up being a bigger day than it should have been. But that's what happens when you do these kind of things. And so whilst we'd been in that area, you know, that Mole Creek, as I say, we did Deloraine a few times. And when did we go and do that mountain biking at Wild Mersey? When did we actually do that? Was that part of that, or did we ended up doing that as part of that because we decided to go and do that mountain biking day? So we went up to Sheffield, wasn't it?
Yep.
Wasn't that where we went? Yeah. So we went up to Sheffield and had a look at some mountain biking at a place called Wild Mersey.
It's a network of MTB trails.
Yeah, and it links with Railton and Sheffield and a few towns together.
It was a lot easier than what we'd done at the other places, but it was still challenging.
Yeah, except that they didn't have shuttles, so you had to ride yourself up the hill. So you know that always makes it a little bit harder when you're on a manual pedal bike.
Oh, that's right. I've briefly forgotten the pain. That actually was quite a hard uphill.
And I had a decent stack that day that actually affected my knee and still was giving me a bit of grief. So it wasn't that easy, but it was a bit of fun, and we did all that at that sort of time as well.
So the highlight for me of that mountain biking ride was to get the views of Mount Roland. Now, what I was talking about earlier, this whole Central Highlands with some fabulous hikes, this Mount Roland is a very visual feature of that whole area. It is absolutely spectacular. But
it'll be on the postcards and it'll be on the tourism brochures, you know.
Our weather had not been that great, and I really, really wanted to do the hiking there, but you know what, we actually didn't do it. So I was glad we got halfway up a mountain that looked across to it, at least on our bikes. It's an area that we'll come back to and do some more hiking. Do you know the one thing we didn't tell our listeners in this podcast that we did do at Mount Field National Park? This is important. We extended our National Parks Pass. So here's a hot tip. When you come to Tasmania, you can buy your Parks Pass on the ferry, and they have a thing called a holiday pass, and it gives you 2 months. So we originally thought we were going to be 6 weeks in Tasmania, so we thought we'd buy the holiday pass because that would give us enough. As it turned out, if you've been listening to our previous podcast, you'll realise that we have extended our trip in Tasmania, and it meant that we weren't actually going to have that National Parks Pass valid
when
the final 4 days,
which was Easter.
And Cradle Valley is obviously such a hotspot tourist point. It is not the kind of place you want to be without your Parks Pass. In fact, it's impossible. You can't be there without your Parks Pass.
Yeah, they're
so
really stringent on it.
I didn't want it to expire because then we'd have to buy something again full price. But I went into the National Parks office at Mount Field and said, while it was still valid, we had a few days left, can we extend it?
And
So listen to
the
this,
answer was
for
easy.
$5,
Well, it was $86 or $87 or something to buy the 4-week one, and $96 or $5 or something to buy the annual one, and $120 something to buy a 2-year one. And so we only had to pay the difference between the 4-week one and the
annual one.
And the annual one. And yeah, it ended up costing about $5 or $6 to go from a.
So we now have an annual pass.
Yeah, so we've got to go back
from our date of purchase. So we are going to be able to go back to Tasmania, hopefully, if the stars align with the rest of life as it does, to get us back in Tasmania again for the start of the 24 summer season, the 24-25 summer season. So stay tuned for that, because we missed some things in Tassie. As you do, it's a massive place. There's so much to do. Our time was not enough.
And our decision to move on was to make sure that we could undertake the rest of the trip and go up the east coast and be in the weather at the right time and not too cold.
Yeah.
And not have to, we didn't want to have to scoot through Victoria or New South Wales to get out of it being too cold. So that's why we sort of had fixed that leaving at Easter.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about that. So at this point we decided, okay, the reality is we've got Easter either in Tasmania or in Victoria.
And
we had made that decision when we did the booking, that Tasmania would be quieter in Easter than Victoria, just based on population. But we had left Cradle Mountain till the last, which was probably the most touristy part of Tasmania for Easter. So we thought, maybe this isn't such a good thing. How about we book it out and actually stay in Cradle Valley at the Discovery Parks, caravan
we had no
park
idea
there.
we could even get a booking.
Yeah, I know.
Over Easter we were going, it was like Monday or something, and Easter's Thursday, and we ring them up and say, can we get a booking for 4 nights of Easter? And they went, yeah, sure.
Yeah, and it's because it's so highly priced, and probably people don't book it up.
Yeah.
But honestly, it was worth every penny. Let's not jump to that just yet, because we had booked it, right? But then our next part is we went from Mole Creek. We ended up down at Lake Parangana, and we loved it so much there that we actually forfeited the beginning of our Easter booking over at Cradle Valley because Lake Parangana was so good. So around the Lake Parangana area, the road ends as you head further south into the what's the big national park down there? Walls of Jerusalem. But we did want to drive all the way down in case we could see the views. The drive there, you can't really see the mountains as well as I thought we might. So it's a long drive. Don't do it for the views. Only go if you are going to do the hikes.
But Lake Parangana.
Lake Parangana.
We got the sups out. We stayed there for a few days. The weather was perfect. There was no breeze. It was sunny each day. There was no rain. It was ideal, and the camping location and the way that the campsites were sort of set up, well separated, fires allowed.
All the good stuff that camping should be.
It was almost what you would call a perfect place to camp. It was ideal. So it had everything for us. And as Michelle said, instead of going on the Friday to Cradle Valley, we said, stuff it, we'll stay at Lake Parangana. We'll just forfeit the $60 or $70 or $80 or $90 or whatever it cost us per night at Cradle Valley, just because this place is so good. And
well, we really 4 nights is too long in Cradle Valley. I didn't know that fully until I started to do a bit more research, and then I realised, wow, we're going to be able to do one big hike and do everything we really need to do in that one, and then you want a day either side. So I really only needed the 3. So I justified it that way. And since we already had the perfect camp, it didn't end up being a free camp if you factor that in. And then we got to do a nice 4-wheel drive circuit, through route, instead of doubling back and getting on the windy bitumen roads.
We went and did Borrowdale Road, which is up in the hills. So basically from Lake Parangana, we went a bit further south, and there's a road that sort of hacks its way up into the hills, and it was a bit steep and hilly. It was fantastic because we were driving up there, and it was cloudy. It was a foggy, misty morning, so beautiful. We couldn't actually see very far in front of the car as we're driving up this hill, and all of a sudden you just come to the sort of the top, and the fog's gone, and the fog's below you. and you're driving up there and you can see all the fog in the valley all around Lake Parangana. It was really spectacular.
I actually just published on social media the photos of that drive and did a whole story about that drive. So that's already available on our social media on both Instagram and Facebook. You can see the photos that we're talking about with the mist and a description of the four-wheel drive route that we took. And really, to get from Lake Parangana to Cradle Valley was only 75 kilometres the slow way that we went.
We also did Kafina Dam and a few other. We did work on the way as we.
We took a whole day doing it.
But we also cut out going back on the main road, which was all the twisty
that we'd already done.
And so this road where we did over the top of the hill. It basically was able to take us out to the bridge that went across the river without us having to do all this complicated twisty driving.
Yeah, near Kafana and Moana. Yeah. So then, really in our summary of our time in Tasmania, we've brought you up to, Cradle Valley, which was a real highlight. I can't express how much it is the most magnificent, most beautiful place visually to see. And even if you're not a hiker, you really come. Let's break it down. You can get on a shuttle from the car park or where there's a visitor centre, or drive yourself to the ranger station and jump on a shuttle. You need a national parks pass of some sort to be able to get on the shuttle, and you pay $15. You get a 3-day pass, 3 consecutive day pass.
Depending which pass you've got.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, this is how it works for us.
There's a bit of technicality.
Okay. Anyway, this shuttle is a hop on, hop off. There's basically.
It runs all day.
There's 4 stations. And the 2 major ones where the hiking trailheads are is Dove Lake and Ronnie Creek. And on our first day there, we thought we'd check out and just do a day trip on the bus. Let's go on a tour on the bus. So we weren't in our hiking gear. We weren't planning to walk. It was actually really hot. It was hotter than our clothing was.
Yeah, it was 30-something degrees.
Yeah. But the sky was blue. There was no wind. So we went to Dove Lake off the shuttle and just enjoyed being a tourist as non-hikers were doing.
With all the other tourists.
But everyone was polite. Everything was pleasant.
It was busy though.
It
was Easter, as we say, middle of Easter. It was busy.
But we planned our day's hike by going into the visitor centre, talking to the ranger there, sorting it all out, got ourselves a plan of what we wanted to do, got our nice photo view, and of course the weather changed. We woke up on our hiking day, a little bit overcast, but we'd already seen the weather do this. And look, Tasmania, you take everything that comes at you and don't make a plan of what it's like first thing in the morning, because you can get 4 seasons in one day.
Oh, not as bad as that, but the day before had similar weather patterns. It's just that we weren't there in the morning, so I kind of had half a clue that hopefully most of this cloud would blow away. And by the time we got around on our walk and started walk, I mean, there was no rain. It was nothing like that. It was just patchy cloud, which, was probably affecting the photographer here more than the actual location. But by the time we'd done half a day's walking, it was perfectly clear and another wonderful, perfect day.
Yep.
Which everyone who lives there and works there was telling us was absolutely unbelievable. They say they only have, 20 or 30 days a year where it's not raining at Cradle Mountain, if you didn't know that. And we had 3 in a row.
3 in a row,
that were perfect. Perfect weather for hiking, perfect weather for sightseeing and taking photos and doing stuff.
So our big hike that we did the following day,
which wasn't that big,
we took the shuttle to Ronnie Creek, and it doesn't have a toilet. Like, I need to go to the toilet. So we got back on the shuttle, went to Dove Lake, Shuttle Point, went to the toilet there, back on the shuttle, back to Ronnie Creek. So we had a bit of a late start to the day, but that's all right. So it was only about 9:30, 10 o'clock.
Yep. And
we did a 10k hike. So we headed out from Ronnie Creek on the overland track, which then picks onto the horse track. And then we went out to Crater Peak. And at this point, you are looking over a beautiful crater. Then you can look out over to Marion's Lookout, which a lot of people hike from there to Marion's.
That's the actual overland track.
Yeah.
Overland track goes to Marion's
so the horse track takes you around a different way, but we were able to look back over Crater Lake and Marion's Lookout and Dove Lake. So it was spectacular views. From that peak, from Crater Peak, you look behind you and you see Cradle Mountain. Now, we're at this peak and it was all grey, there's clouds hanging over the top of Cradle Mountain, and then suddenly, I don't know what happens, a bird squawks and the clouds dissipated, and it was picture perfect. So out comes all the camera gear and the GoPro, and then from there, hiking towards Kitchen Hut.
Yep.
It's boardwalk, and I have taken my most favourite pictures of our whole Tasmania trip, and I've published these as well, and you'll see them. The boardwalk snaking its way to Kitchen Hut with the most magnificent view of Cradle Mountain in the distance, and the intersection of all the hikers that have been on the alternative path, the more mainstream one from Marion's Lookout, it intersects with us at Kitchen Hut. And everyone was at Kitchen Hut. Everyone uses that as like a morning tea stop, lunch stop, whatever. It was very, very busy there. And then from there, you've got to make your decision as to whether you're going to do the summit up to Cradle Mountain or not. Otherwise, you do what's called the face track. If you do the face track, which is what we decided to do, it's quite a long excursion. You're going all the way back towards is it west? East, sorry. And you come to Hanson's Peak, and you're at the top looking down at Dove Lake. And you get another whole big extension of the hike.
The face itself is the face of Cradle Mountain. So when you look at Cradle Mountain on a view, it looks like it's quite wide, big, it's wider at the base. Wider at the base and smaller at the top. Sounds like a mountain, but it's quite a wide thing. And the face track takes you across basically where a transition in the slope. It slopes and then it goes straight up. So you basically walk under the bit where there's still terrain and looking up at the cliff face that goes up to the top of the mountain. It was really spectacular.
It was a very narrow track.
It
wasn't the
most easy walk in that, but it was.
There weren't many people on it. There was a few, but not too many. Whereas scrambling up to the top of Cradle Mountain, whilst we're both physically capable, and I really thought that we would do it.
Well, that wild Mersey mountain biking issue that I'd mentioned earlier that I'd hurt my knee had already happened. So
and David had a knee brace.
I wasn't particularly comfortable 100% to add another 2-hour extreme scramble rock climb thing into our journey for the day, so we left that.
And we probably did make the right decision, because we came across another couple that had done it and then started the face track, and they were crying. They were bailing
out.
Enough. They couldn't complete the face track having done the summit, and she said it was too much. I've bitten off too much than I can do, and that's a shame, because then she had to go downhill and bail out of the track. There is a section where you can bail out off the face track, and it's called Wilkes Track. And when you do that, you come straight down to Dove Lake and you level quite quickly. But for us, we were able to continue on, and we got to the Ranger Hut Emergency Shelter and the Lake Rodway and Lake Hanson's Track. And Hanson's Peak was spectacular, because we were able to actually look all the way back out to those, not Mount Rowland, whatever it was, back at the Western
Walls
Tiers.
of Jerusalem and all that sort of stuff. So we got views all the way to Walls of Jerusalem and quite a long way, and a really panoramic spot. In fact, I've just opened up the Hanson's Peak place in the Traveller app, and there's a few photos in there. So have a look at the photos. We've loaded we've loaded some of the photos into the places system, so you can see some of the things that we're talking about and some of the spectacular views that we were afforded when we were there. It was really a nice place, and if you.
And so this hike, doing this circuit, we were able to end at Dove Lake and of course get on the shuttle. Within a few minutes, the shuttle comes along. They run on a continuous circuit based on demand. It's really, really well run place. That whole place understands how to deal with a volume of people. So if you can consider, we are happy and we have been there over Easter. That's saying something, because we'll complain about too many crowds and rah, rah, rah. And look, we really enjoyed ourselves, and we spent a lot of nightly fee at the Discovery Parks, but again, that place was really well done. Good facilities. I got good laundry done, so we were able to leave Tasmania with everything washed and dried and clean. We were able to use power and water hooked in directly into the camper trailer, so we didn't have power issues and water issues. We were happy campers.
And you think about these poor people that we were just talking about, having to bail out of walk and stuff. You don't want to have that kind of thing in your head when you're come to a lovely place thinking, oh, he wasn't able to finish my thing, or he wasn't able to do this.
I know.
So making it a little bit easier. It wasn't easy. It was still a solid day's hiking. Well, I can't remember the kilometres. I don't have it in front of me.
It was only about 10.
Yeah, it was only about 10 or so, but it was
look,
a
and
bit
that's
tricky,
strenuous
but
for most people, I'm sure, and there's a lot of ascent in that, particularly.
Yeah, there was a lot of up and down, and
Oh,
lots of hammering the knees up and down as you go up and down the hills and stuff like that, which wasn't great when you've got a slight knee problem. But Cradle Mountain, Cradle Valley, that kind of area. We'll be back. I suspect that we'll probably try and book into the overland track for that return journey that we might try and do. Coming into season 24,
I've got
25.
The facts on all this, because to make sure that we're prepared for that, these were some things I did not know. So when we first planned to come to Tasmania, if you've been listening to the earlier podcast, we thought...
Well, it was only a last minute thing at the end of the day, but...
Yeah, we thought we wouldn't be able to get a booking because our whole plan of travelling around Australia is all out of sync with the right time of year and the right place and all that. So it's been a bit of a hodgepodge put it together plan. So we didn't have advance booking for coming for Tasmania. We booked it in December and we arrived in January. And I've mentioned this before in an earlier podcast. That is possible if your vehicle manages under 2.1 high and under 10 metres long. So with our camper trailer, we fit in that metric. So if you can fit into that, you can get bookings, and you can adjust your bookings once you've got one. But what I couldn't do was book the overland track at Cradle Valley. So how that works is there's a summer peak hiking season which starts on the 1st of October. 1st of October through to 31st of May is your summer hiking season. Now, there's a booking period to book your hiking for that whole period, every day of that. And
if you're doing the full overland track, this is talking about, not just any little day trips around Cradle Mountain.
The 5-6 day overnight.
The overland track,
The booking period opens in early July, and on the day, within hours that they open the booking period, every single day of the booking period is booked out for hiking. The reason for this is they cap the number of hikers. For independent hiking, they'll only allow 34 hikers per day to start. So you book your hike as your starting day. You don't have to nominate how many days and where you're going to stop. They don't care about that. So the shortest distance of the overland track is 65 kilometres. But most people will extend that distance by doing a few side trips out and back. There's one of them is another 15 kilometres. So, some people will be out there for 9 days, not just the shortest being 5 days. That doesn't matter in your booking. It's your start date that matters. And because they're capping that, you really have to make sure that you know what you're doing and you're booking in advance. So if we are going to do it for this season, we have to be online and making that booking on the 1st of July or the opening. They haven't announced the exact day of the opening. It's early July. For the winter hiking season, that booking period opened on the 1st of May. So in 1st of May, which has just happened. And you still have caps, but because it's prone to snow, rain, sleets, blizzard, the whole lot, there's less people. You really have to be very experienced to cope with that.
You can get a booking for the winter hiking
we
period.
We have friends that hike it in winter, but there's no way I'm doing that. Anyway, and when we left Cradle Valley, we woke up in the morning, packed up and drove straight to...
the boat. We actually drove to Burnie.
Straight to Derwent.
Because we drove to Burnie because...
the long way.
We drove the long way. We had a whole day. We didn't have to be on the boat till 7:30 at night or 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night or something. 9:30 it was. So we
checked out at 10.
We spent the day, so we spent the day touring around. So we finally got to Burnie after not doing it.
Oh yeah, Burnie and Penguin and all of those places.
Sulphur Creek and all those things along the coast. And we had a decent day. We checked out a few campsites and a few locations around the area.
We had more time than what we knew to do with. Very, very leisurely. We could have done.
It was a bit leisurely, wasn't it? Yeah, and we got to. Then we ended up going back to the shops the same shops again.
We did. You wanted to buy more hiking boots or shoes or something.
Oh,
what did you buy?
My hiking sandals. My hiking Tiva sandals had crap themselves, so I had to buy some new sandals. And then back over to Devonport and join the queue to jump on the boat. And, the boat trip, I don't even know where I'm trying to go right now. That was the end of Tassie. The end of Tas, and we had such a great time in Tasmania, and as you've been hearing us talking about now, you know, we're already planning to possibly get there so that we can save our $100 desert national parks pass, so we don't have to buy another one. You know, what a great excuse is to say I've still got a national parks pass that I have to go and spend a few grand on the ferry to go back.
Yeah. But look, the reason we've put so much time into the last 3 podcasts that we've prepared on Tasmania is that we've really been very passionate about the experience there, as we hope we've inspired you. Highly recommend planning a trip to Tassie. But the number one takeaway from all of this is you cannot book enough time there. There is so much to do that is so good. So please, 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 9 weeks that we started with is barely enough. We have circumnavigated Tasmania before in 3 weeks and gone all the way around the whole thing and knew that we had to come back and do this longer trip. Now we've done this longer trip, it's still not enough, and we're going to go back and do more. I might be preaching to the converted. Any of you that have already visited Tasmania know this, but if you have never been to Tasmania, take it from those that are telling you now. Go as long as you can. And go 3 months, go 4 months.
And of course, all the data for your great journey and adventure has all been updated within the Exploros Traveller app. That's what we do each day, and that's what we've spent our entire daytimes doing while we were in Tasmania. So there's a great wealth of new photos and the tracks and track log updates. There's a whole myriad of content updates that Michelle's been putting through onto the whole system. So if you're planning to or thinking of going to Tasmania, nothing better than the Exploros Traveller app. You can see all these great photos and all these great destinations that we went to. You can have a look at our track log, which is available in the track log system, so you can see exactly where we went if that floats your boat, and know all the locations and the names. Fantastic place, highly recommended, Tassie.